All right, Juggernaut Podcast, episode 9. I'm going to be straight up with you from the top. Straight up, like Travis Scott says, I'm beefing right now. I'm in a big beef. You might be wondering the first question, why are you naked right now? It's a very simple answer because all I wear is ball and buck, that's it. And I'm beefing with the Postal Service, FedEx, everybody, you and all your boys, because I have a package of all ball and buck stuff that's I was trying to wear right now and look fancy and look like just beautiful. It's going to make me look so handsome. And it's not here yet. So in protest, I'm just going to be naked because all I wear is ball and buck. That's it. I will not let anything else touch my body. So unfortunately, I'm just going to be naked, or fortunately, depending on who you are. You may want to see it. You may not. I'm going to be naked until this package gets here. I'm going on, like, you've heard of a hunger strike. Like, you ever heard of Mahatma Gandhi? It's a little something I just pulled out of my dome piece from back in school. I don't know if he ever did a naked strike. He was, I think, more of a hunger strike guy. I'm going on a naked strike. I will not let any piece of clothing touch my body unless it's ball and buck. So that's just the facts. Ball and buck, I know I introduced it last week, but we got this stuff cooking up. We're going down to the bayou. We're going to Tejas. That's how the locals might say it down there. Texas. We got a lot of stuff coming right now, and I'm wildly excited. And I would have loved to wear it in the thing, but instead I have to beef with all forms of mail, even like non-package deliveries. I'm beefing with mail and males. Just everything that, like, females are safe, but males, you may say it's not my fault, I'm just a boy, but male, you end up sharing the, whatever it's called, the word with the Postal Service. So I'm beefing with everyone. This is going to go on until I get it. So for everyone's sake, good luck. I hope that they deliver it soon. If not, I'll just be naked forever. Ball and buck, go check them out right now. We got Nick Stanczyk right now, and I'm going to be straight up with you once again. I accidentally recorded this episode in like quadruple 400 frames a second slow-mo, so the part of the audio or the visual is going to be a little bit trippy. But that was an accident. We recorded this a while ago when I didn't really know what I was doing, and I still don't really know what I'm doing, but that's just why it might look weird in certain places. And if you're saying, yo, did you record this and then have to speed it up to 400% to get it to look normal? Yes. Let's get into it. All right. I think we're live right now. I'm here at Bud and Mary's Marina with the Sultan of Swordfish, kind of the bad boy of Bud and Mary's right now, Nick Stanczyk, a guy who I have looked up to for a long time and I was lucky enough to fish with and get to know. But now I get to talk to you about anything. Thank you for your time, Nick. How's it going today, baby?
Everything's good. Came here and going to talk about everything and anything you want to.
We got a pretty cool set right now. Where are we right now? Just to give people a little.
We're in my dad's office here at Bud and Mary's. A lot of pictures on the wall. Some of us little kids growing up. And we got my dad's Metamucil right here.
There we go.
When you get old, I think you start taking that stuff.
You know what?
So.
We might have to take. I don't know. Sometimes I need a little bit. I don't take Metamucil, but sometimes, you know, you need a little digestive, a little fiber.
Definitely. We keep it right here. So if we need some, we got some.
The only thing that I don't like is when I'm going on the boat. I try to stay away from fiber. Because you're a big oatmeal guy, right?
Oatmeal almost every morning.
I don't know, man. Have you ever had to go to the bathroom on the boat? That wasn't my first question I was going to say, but now that we're talking about it. Like when you have clients
a couple times,
and stuff?
Charter, so I charter fish, and I haven't been fishing quite as much as I used to, but 200 plus days a year out there, and sometimes early in the morning, and nature hits you, you gotta go.
It's tough.
And I don't have a bathroom on my boat.
It's one of my biggest fears, to be honest.
Yep, nothing like saying, excuse me, first thing in the morning.
And you get to know people really quick.
Yep, no doubt. So no shame, though.
I was actually on a boat one time. I can't say his name, but a guy that I was nervous to be on with. And he had a few of his employees with him. We were in the bayou, in the swamp, with like gators everywhere. So we couldn't get out and go somewhere.
Right.
And this dude went number 2 in the boat, roundabout. There was like 4 girls on the boat. It was one of the most awkward things I've ever seen. I don't even know if I can put that in because he might be someone. Anyways, long story short, it's not good. I always try to go beforehand. But anyways, Nick, we're here today, and I am very, very excited because I have a lot of questions for you. But before we talk about anything, you are obviously well known for a lot of things now, more than you used. Now you're like a Renaissance man. But before anything else, I think people that don't know who you are, before we even talk about how you got into sword fishing and all the methods that you kind of, I wouldn't say maybe didn't invent, but kind of like perfected. Sure. Would that be a way to put it?
Definitely, yeah, we fine-tuned them.
Tell me about just the swordfish as a fish? Because I think people have seen, they might know a sailfish, they've seen something on the wall. It's one of the most unique fish in the world.
Definitely. And that's probably what we're best known for, sword fishing down here. And like we said, we didn't invent it. It was done. Daytime sword fishing is very unique. We drop baits down 1,500 feet, a third of a mile down there. Sometimes 1,800 feet, 2,000 feet. And drop a bait to the bottom, fishing for a swordfish. And a swordfish could be 20 pounds, could be 800 pounds. And a huge range. And they're one of the strongest fighting fish. People like Zhang Gray chased them all over the world, years ago. And to see one caught was very special. And traditionally, they were always caught at nighttime. And then in Venezuela, in the 90s, a doctor named Ruben Hine was catching them deep dropping in the daytime, but no one had really done that here with success because of the Gulf Stream. There's so much current, and my family was able to figure out how to drop a bait down there and get a bait down in the middle of the Gulf Stream and catch swordfish and catch a lot of them.
So I think one thing as well that people don't realize when you say 2,000 feet down or 1,800 feet, when I went out with you, the thing I was surprised, the amount of line that it actually takes to get down there. It's not just 2,000 feet down. Like you're dealing with, it scopes out so far, and it's like, the physics of trying to get something, it's not like it's like this. It's like way out here, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong.
No doubt. And people, so we can both hang crank or use an electric reel. And hang cranking is more like mono y mono and stuff like that, and definitely something to brag about more. But a lot of people do use electric reels just because how deep it is. I mean, you could be in 1,800 feet of water, but the current's 3 or 4 knots, and you got 3,600 feet of line out. Double the line because there's such a belly in the line. It's like looking at a power line up in the air. They're never straight across, and there's always a bow in. Same thing, and then you got a 10-pound lead on it, and fishing for a fish with a 3-foot sword on the end of his face there, so it can be pretty interesting to hook and catch.
A fish that even if it was in shallow water would be hard to catch. Then you're dealing with all that. The thing I think is amazing, too, about a swordfish, right? You're literally fishing for aliens, because when we think of aliens, it's outer space where it's a different planet than this. 2,000 feet down is completely a different planet than anything 99% of humans, 99.9, have ever seen or encountered.
Yep, my dad refers to as inner space.
Yeah, it really is, though.
Yeah, and they say there's less known about, the deep water, ocean floor, and the critters and the stuff that lives there, than there is about some of the stuff outside, which is crazy. Stuff 2,000-3,000 feet down there, and we don't even know that much about it.
And what was like your first kind of experience when the first time that you saw a swordfish? Like, obviously now you're the grandmaster, but like when you were a rookie, like what was your first kind of impressions of them?
Some days I still feel like a rookie, just to be honest, because they can humble you. But we caught some swordfish at nighttime. That's how people traditionally fish for them, because we knew swordfish came to the surface. But the daytime deep dropping is what we'll kind of focus on. We had tried it a few times. My dad had caught some with my uncle, a couple here, a couple there. Then we had gone, and I remember we snagged bottom. And every time you hooked bottom and lost the rig, you would lose $300-$400 worth of stuff. You had a couple of lights in there that are $50 a piece. You had the line that cost $300. You had a $50 sinker, plus the time to rig it. So we hooked bottom. It was a very expensive learning curve, but I remember it was in May. We caught 2 that day, that daytime, and 2 at night. And the first one I caught was barely a keeper, a small keeper, a legal fish. My buddy Casey, I was Casey and Jack on the boat, my dad, and so we caught that small one. And later in the day, we caught one that I reeled in myself. I was the angler. Usually I'm on the boat driving. I don't catch too many of the fish, but this is, I think, back in 2006, so quite a while ago. And
the Miami days?
Yeah, the Miami days during college
guy,
University of
wild
Miami.
Boy.
But catch this, I caught a 126-pound swordfish, and I remember it was foul hooked on a mullet with a little circle hook, and it was kind of hooked on the eye socket because they're very sloppy eater when they eat. Hit that bait with a bill, they get wrapped up, foul hooked a lot. The thing swam all the way to the surface, and we thought it was gone. It was slack line. We looked by the boat, and it was swimming by the boat. We reached over and gaffed it, and it was still hooked on there. But these fish were so erratic, and we didn't know what to expect. And you'd hook a fish, over 100 pounds, 1,600 feet down, came all the way to the boat, swimming at it, and we thought it was gone. I'm pulling in the lights on the leader about 50 feet back, and we looked down, the fish is swimming by the boat, and we just reached over and gaffed him. And that was my first one I saw caught in the daytime. First 2 really that same day in May, and we got 2 that night. And after that, it became an obsession, and we got pretty good at catching them, but there's still days where you miss them. But what I liked about it, when you left the dock here, you never knew when you were going to hook a 400 or 500 pound fish.
Right.
It could happen today.
Or more, which we'll get into soon, because there's a little bit more than that. But all I'll say too, when I first saw the swordfish that we caught together, actually we almost caught 2. So the first one I saw came up next to the boat. The colors on it, like when you see one mounted or like a picture, they're generally like, sometimes they have that purple, but it's like a black, all the stuff.
Yeah, brownish black.
They're like glowing when they come up, though.
No doubt. Yeah, you would never expect a fish to come up from that deep water, so deep. The water is almost freezing cold down there on the bottom. It's just above freezing, it's high 30s. But that fish would come up glowing blue and purple, indigo and stuff like that, where you don't see that as colors, once the fish get tired out and they turn brown because of, lack of oxygen and all that. But
Yeah.
I know we lost that good fish with it. We did get one, so it was still a great day with getting the one, but I remember we lost the bigger one, had him so close too.
But I don't understand something too about, just so people at home, the pressure down that deep is what? Thousands and thousands of pounds per square inch?
It's a lot of pressure, no doubt about it. I mean, if you put a piece of foam down there, it would come up crumbled for sure.
Yeah, so those fish are down there swimming in literally inner space, as you said. The pressure's crazy, it's freezing cold, and that exact same fish you hook will come up, jump, and then still go back down and dive to it.
Yep, they can come top to bottom. I've seen them do it 3 or 4 times in a fight, even more than that. And hook them on the bottom, come all the way up, jump, swim right by the boat, kind of look at you. He wants to see who's pulling on him.
Yeah.
All the way back down to the bottom, come back up, and they're good at getting away. You could fight these fish 4 or 5, 6 hours and still pull the hooks on them. And right when you think you're going to catch them, they come off. And
What's like the longest that you fought one that they've came off?
March 17th, 2 years ago, so almost 2 years to the day, we fought one 7 hours, had him on the wind on 7 times, had him about 50 feet away one time. He jumped and splashed. I could see him shining. I don't know if it was 500 or 800 pounds. The fish died about 5 hours into it. We were fighting him, and it's kind of rough, and started coming down. Get the fish, the mate's on the reel this time. It's electric reel, but you're still on the reel, inching and pulling on it. I had the people they owned a gun company and stuff like that, and they're on the boat there, and I felt like we brought a knife to a gunfight, and we're fighting this big giant swordfish, and he's dead. He hasn't moved in 2 hours, hasn't swam. We're inching him up, literally getting 1 inch at a time, just like that. And my mate's on the reel at the time, and and the wind on leader is about a 100-foot long piece of monofilament. So we have 80-pound braided line to 200-pound monofilament in the long leader. And he goes, there's the wind up, kapow! The line breaks 5 feet from the rod tip.
And what's the next minute after that? You just all silence or
Yeah, there might have been a curse word or two, but definitely silence. And the frustrating part with that fish was, you fight it for 7 hours. We get the fish. The leader's at the rod tip. Once that leader comes on the reel, you're going to catch that fish. It's 200-pound test.
Yeah.
It breaks off there. Your heart falls. I fished. I'm 38 now, so what was I, 36 back then? You only get a few chances to hook a fish like that your entire life.
Right.
That doesn't happen every day. And we were gonna catch that fish. He was done. He was dead. We fought him. He had died. He tired out, and up and down 7 times, and the leader up and down. And it was really tough to swallow that loss because it wasn't like we pulled a hook. It was the line failed and broke. We pulled a little too hard on it at the end there and worn out. And you never know. Sometimes other fish are swimming by, they swim into the line, they weaken it.
Yeah.
You don't really know what had happened, but that one was tough. That was March 17th, 2 years ago. And
I think the biggest thing about stuff like that, just in my experience, is when you're young or you're still gung-ho about it, you're like, we'll get another one. And as you get a little more experience, anyone can say what they want. Oh, we'll see another one. But in your head, you're like, we may never see that type of fish again. And you do it enough that you hopefully will,
yeah.
But you know how rare it is. You know what I'm saying? And it's you can't really lie about it once you're in your head. You're like, man, that one was tough. It just stings,
No doubt. And you got the people on the boat oh, we'll get them next time. And you just know the amount of time and energy and effort, the days, the years you spend out there to have that shot to hook that fish. And there's one you're going to catch. We were going to catch that fish in 5 minutes. No, we just had to go a little bit further to get that leader on the reel. And I've caught I think I've seen over 2,000 swordfish caught now.
Really?
Only 3 of them ever over 500 pounds. So that's how hard they are to catch. And then to have that big fish there, worn out and tired, big spring times when these big fish come through here, up through the Keys a lot of times. And that was a tough one. And
are they migrating or what? I didn't know.
Yeah, I believe there's residential fish, but a lot of these fish migrate, and they don't always follow the same path. We just had a swordfish. We tagged and released the one we caught, correct?
Yeah, we did.
So I had a customer, a friend. James is my old mate, so he took out another customer who I fished with, and he's a friend too, Jeremiah. 3 days ago, and they caught a tagged swordfish about 150 pounds. They called it into the Billfish Foundation. I tagged that fish 3 years prior in December. So just over 3 years. You don't know where it went in between. It could have swam 1,000 miles away and came back. But I've never caught a tagged one myself, and we've tagged a few hundred of them now. But they caught that same fish, and I tagged it right off Islamorada here. You don't really know where it went in between, like I said, but that was kind of cool to see. But these fish do migrate. Sometimes they go different directions. I've had tags be recaught off Cuba, one in the Gulf of Mexico, mostly between Miami and Palm Beach by the commercial fishermen up there. But I've also had them off the Carolinas, I had one off Nova Scotia, off Canada.
Wow.
So these fish do move. But
From here?
From here. We had one go 300 miles in 30 days. So he's swimming 10 miles a day. A little fish.
He's cooking.
Yeah, he was moving. He was burning energy.
It's amazing.
But, there's a big migration of these fish, usually in the late fall and the wintertime, those fish move south is the general consensus. There's obviously ones that do little different things in between. But in the springtime, anyhow, is when we've seen big fish here every month of the year. But in the springtime, if someone said, hey, I want to fish for a big one, come down and fish in the springtime, March, April, May. And that is a good shot, not guaranteed, but that's a good shot. You might see a big one.
So when we're talking about big fish, I got to ask, what a moment that I remember, let alone for you. I mean, I remember where I was when I saw this and everything. Take me through. I'll let you set the scene, but the biggest swordfish that you've ever caught, and which is, before he even says it, because I don't know if you're going to be humble, you shouldn't be, it's something that's out of like one of my old Zane Grey books, something that is truly a colossal specimen that you don't see anymore. Take me through that day and that fish.
That was March 31st, a few years ago. Another
2019,
fish.
Right?
Yeah, 2019. Yeah. So I guess we're coming up on 4 years almost.
Yeah.
So almost 4 years ago. But that was a big swordfish. It was we went out in the morning, left 7 o'clock, ran to the spot there. And swordfishing is very popular now. There's days out there, there's 15 or 20 boats where,
really?
Years ago, there's, obviously no one was doing it when we first started it. But we went out there, a slick, calm day, and put the baits out. We got 2 rods out, a buoy on one rod and another rod straight down. And I told the people what to look for. Because sometimes when a swordfish eats the buoy, it's out there bobbing. It's just a big bobber. You think these fish are going to bend over, suck the buoy down, all that. But a lot of these fish, they swim to the surface when they get hooked. So the buoy laid over on its side, and we'd only been fishing 5 minutes. We just put the baits out. And I told the people, the buoy's slack. And the buoy, went like this and laid on its side. So that fish is carrying up a 10-pound lead. It's 8 in the morning, super early. And we get on the reel. I tell the guys, slack line. They're scratching. They're like, huh? It's kind of the opposite of what you expect. You expect to hook this big giant fish. It takes a bunch of line.
Right.
Not the case. They come up. They want to see you. They want to look at you first. Swims all the way up. They're on, Bill and Debbie there. They're on the rod and reel. And we see this fish, and I know it's big. I can see him about 50 feet down, all blue. I'm like, that thing's big. It's 400 to 500 pounds.
Right.
We didn't see the fish again for 5 hours, and it had jumped. And we were fighting it up and down, up and down. You're drifting about 2 to 3 knots. So every hour you're going 2 or 3 miles. The fish jumps at 5 hours in, and I didn't see it. I had my head turning. Mentally, to be in the steering wheel, plus the rod and reel, the mate, you have to stay so focused, because as the hours and hours go by, you get delusional almost. And it jumped, and the guy saw it, and it was way out there, though. It was 500-600 feet away when it jumped. And I said, how big was it? And he's like, I think it was 300 to 400 pounds. He's like, it was big, but not that big. I was like, there ain't no way this 300 to 400 pounder is kicking our butt like this.
Right.
Not 5 hours in. Once in a while they get foul hooked, you fight with that, but this fish is bigger than that. So 6 hours in, we get an hour later there. Connor's with me, Connor Ross, and his dad runs the Relentless, so his dad's an incredible fisherman.
Oh, yeah.
And so is Connor. Connor's a great young fisherman. First time we ever fished together. And he has the harpoon. He's never seen a swordfish caught before. He's probably a 15, 16-year-old kid back then. And we're 6 hours in. We're finally getting this fish coming, and we can see him down there. He's about 60, 70 feet down. Get him up a couple feet, and he's on his side just kicking and kicking. And we're driving the boat circling because a swordfish likes to charge the boat and the motors. They've attacked submarines before. The Alvin submarine.
Really?
If you go on the internet, look it up. Swordfish attack submarine. A submarine came up from 2,000 feet with a swordfish impaled in it. So they love to charge.
Because they just don't know what it is and they're pissed at it? Or?
I think so. They're very ornery and angry fish. They just want to attack stuff. And I think that they know when you're fighting them that something's wrong. So they're not afraid of anything. They spear mako sharks, for God's sakes, and all that stuff. But so we're fighting this big fish, and I have to make sure that he doesn't get in the props, in the wheels, charging the boat. He's coming up, and we get him about 40 feet away, and we have a lot of pressure on him at this time. And the fish was, it's this big around, like a barrel. Oh. And I said, that fish is 500 plus. And I look at, then he rolls over, that fish is 600 plus. He's this big around.
So at this point, what was the biggest one that you'd caught until then?
600 pounds even, but it was long and skinny.
But you thought, okay, this is
I knew
bigger
this one
than
was,
that?
I knew this one was bigger. I knew he would swallow it. He was so fat.
Yeah.
So then we get the fish coming. He's coming up. And Connor takes a shot with a harpoon, but we missed. 6 hours.
And were you trying to just stay calm but kind of pissed?
I thought he hit him. I ran back to grab a gaff.
No way.
The fish got underneath the boat on me. Luckily, it didn't hit the props.
Oh my God! I never heard that part.
I get chills when I tell you this story here. I remember the thing
getting
now,
chills.
So.
That's crazy.
So this fish is there. He's big. And I thought he had hit him. So did he. And I ran back there. He didn't have him. So we do a circle. We come on hard left on him. Get the fish out from underneath the boat. we think he's tired now because we're over 6 hours in, 6.5 hours in. It goes down like 300 or 400 feet. I'm like, don't worry, we'll get him back up in a few minutes. We didn't see that fish for another hour and a half.
Oh my God.
And you know, the line's getting burnt. It's going in and out. It's getting worn down. You
Yeah,
don't know.
because like every minute that he's on, I think this is something too. When Nick's talking about 5 hours and another hour and a half, that may sound like, oh, you know how much time that is. But you got to think when the stakes are this high, every second and every minute that goes by, it's kind of like, it's almost like if you're watching a sports game and it's in like double overtime. It's like it adds and adds and adds because the pressure goes up. If you lose a fish after a minute, oh man, we missed him. If you lose them after 30 minutes, you're like, damn, we were doing good.
Yep.
If you have a fish on for 6 hours, in your brain, it's like, and once you've seen him and you know he's that big, it's like
Yep.
the pressure is insane. So it's like that hour probably felt like 10 hours at that point.
For sure. You lose, like I said, you almost get delusional there because the time is passing. And then you hit a certain point where you start, you're peak, like, we're going to catch him. But then, at some point, the odds and chances go down the longer you fight that fish.
Yeah.
So we're about 7 hours and 50 minutes in. Another boat had caught a big swordfish that day, too. I got a call on the radio.
Spring fish.
But it wasn't as big as ours. But we'll get to that after this. But he caught a big swordfish, too. And so this fish, we're 7 hours, 50 minutes, right at 8 hours, and the fish comes back by. Connor's got the harpoon. Bill's on the reel. I'm driving. And you can see it on the YouTube video up there. And this fish is coming at the boat there. And Connor throws the dart. And you can throw this harpoon, and you can see it stick up in the air. So we knew we'd hit him. So this fish is coming at us like this, swimming at the boat slowly. One harpoon's in his back, sticking up. I grab a second harpoon, get it in him. Then I grab the gaffs, and I'm excited. I'm like a football coach. I'm screaming, I'm yelling. We got 2 gaffs in him, 2 harpoons, but he wasn't done yet. He was still kicking, still thrashing around the boat. So I start screaming, yelling, grab another gaff, grab another gaff. We get a 3rd gaff into him. My elbow hits the guy, knocks his hat and glasses off in the water. We're hanging onto this big giant swordfish, and you think it would be done after that, but it wasn't. Finally, after about 5 minutes, the fish just settles down and is laying there. The fish had a 72-inch girth. It's 6 foot around. He's bigger around a circle than I am tall.
What?
So we get this fish by the boat there, and the fish is foul hooked.
I'll put the picture in when we're talking about this in the video.
There's the picture up there, so we'll show that one up
yeah.
there. So the fish is, we put a tail rope on, we tie him up. We got to get the fish in the boat then.
Yeah.
It's me, a 16-year-old kid, and Bill and Debbie, and they're probably in their 50s or something like that. Obviously probably in their 50s. Like, I got a Freeman, the gunnels are pretty high. We ain't pulling this fish over, so we have a block and tackle, like a pulley.
Yeah.
So we tie it up to the tower, get him about halfway up, and there's a triple block and pulley. So you got 3 pulleys on, 3 wheels there. Get him about halfway up. We can't get him in. The tower's starting to creak a little bit too. The boat's rocking little by little, like, I was like, I don't want to break the boat and stuff like that, but I got to get this fish in.
And how far out are you?
30 miles. So we'd hook the fish.
You can't have the tower break off of the boat like this.
We don't
is
want
like
that stuff. We don't want to. So we hooked the fish. We had fought him 8 hours. We had drifted 20 miles. We're doing 2.5 knots fighting him. So we hooked him off Islamorada. We wound up off Key Largo.
No way.
So we start getting him in there. No one else is out there. Everyone else has gone in. It was 4:30 in the afternoon. And we have to tighten the rope up on his tail, move the block and tackle up a little bit higher on the tower. We finally get the fish in. He hits the deck, and it was big, And I didn't know how big exactly. Then we measured him and stuff like that. And I had a banana on the boat. Now, bananas are supposedly bad luck.
This is the banana guy.
So I always
ever won.
I usually bring a banana just for a conversation starter, but I typically don't pull it out until we catch a fish. That way I can see it didn't matter.
Right.
I forgot I had it, so we get the fish in the boat. We take a bunch of pictures, punch in the marina. We got to run back 30 miles. I found the banana, so I took a few pictures laying by the surface of the banana. Ate the snack, got a little potassium, run back in, and I started getting these text messages like, where are you? What are you doing? I was like, we caught Fred. Now, Fred was the name that my dad had given these big swordfish we fished for, for 15 years before that. We used to have a forklift here, so my dad always said, we're going to catch forklift Fred.
Right.
And that means when we caught this swordfish, we were going to need the forklift to get him out of the boat. So I texted my dad, I said, Fred's dead. So we're running back here, and then I get another call. My uncle calls me, he's like, Kevin's boat, they caught a 500-pounder today, like 5:30.
And you're like, it's bad news for Kevin.
You catch this 500-pounder, should be king of the dock, talk of the town.
Yeah.
Someone brings in old Big Mama, old Fred at 7:57. things the tune changed a little bit, so they still caught a nice fish.
So
but
when you got back though, how'd you even get it out of the boat? Did you have a forklift? Or like what did you do?
So we got rid of the forklift after 10 years of waiting. We never caught Fred, so we caught some big ones, over 400 pounds. We did catch a 600 pounder, but this was the legitimate Fred. This was forklift Fred. We had the block and tackle. We had another pulley on the barn we put there just for a moment like this in case, so we could hook them up and get a picture back there with them. And so we tied him up to the barn. We had about 6 or 7 people help pull him out of the boat there with a big pulley system. And we didn't know what he was going to weigh. I had never seen a fish that fat. And it tipped the scales. There were 757 pounds. And it was fun. It was exciting. That was the first swordfish Bill and them had ever caught. And I'd obviously caught a lot before that. First one Connor ever caught. But that thing, I ain't going to say broke the internet, but it blew up the Instagram, the internet. It was going crazy and viral. People, I had hundreds of messages on there. That was for my YouTube kind of career. That was my first video to really kickstart it and say, hey, this might be a legitimate thing to go down. And those first couple of videos, that fish was life-changing for me. And then people asked, what'd you do with it? We kept half of it here. We had a bunch of it that people took like 300 pounds of meat home with them. I had random people messaging me for 2 months after that saying, hey, Bill and Debbie gave us swordfish up in the west coast of Florida. Yeah. I had people down here we gave it to. And then I had sold that boat. That was my first Freeman I had. Tell my friend Jeff and that they were buying it, wound up buying it later that year. But I always kept a little bit of that swordfish in the freezer for special occasions. So I remember me and Jeff were eating old forklift Fred there, 6 or 8 months later once they bought my old boat. I got my new boat. So
that's amazing. So the thing to me too is like when someone plays like in the NHL, it's like you're trying to win the Stanley Cup. You're trying it's a once in a lifetime career thing. Like that kind of fish is like basically the fishing equivalent of like winning a championship. Honestly, maybe more rare because I don't know. Like even less than that would be like a championship fish. That fish literally changed your life.
No doubt about it. That was the fish we were fishing for all those years, and the thing like we talked about, I lost that other one a year or two later, after 7 hours. I don't know if it was bigger or not. I could see him shining. I don't know if it was bigger or smaller, but you only get a few shots at fish like that your entire life, and thank God that one stayed on there because that kind of put, obviously we were known for swordfishing, but that one fish, the notch like that, is what kind of made me, kind of maybe a little bit of concrete, just like, hey, swordfish and Stanczyk, blah, blah, blah.
And I'm sure, too, as well, when you lost the other one, it still stings, but having that 757 in your kind of resume it's a little bit different tone. You never are going to feel good about losing a fish, but, I don't know how to say it. It's almost like you got in a video game, you, saved your progress at a certain point. It's like you can never go back past that.
Sure.
You want a bigger one, but that's if the asteroid hits Earth tomorrow, it's like you're still pretty happy. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. It's like I could probably go out there. Chartering, is my main business, running fish charters. And obviously I want to always catch fish, but I don't necessarily always have to catch them now because I kind of done the grind work and the work before that to get up there. And, if you're going to compare it to a championship, I got my one championship fish there. And we also caught a giant swordfish in Australia off Tasmania. We didn't. I was a guest on a TV show with iFish with Paul and his family. They were obsessed with swordfishing. This guy, I fished him 7 or 8 years ago, and he came here and we fished 2 days. We had 2 bites. We lost them both, but we had a 300-pounder, a big one. He was hand cranking, and he saw the fish, and he was so happy just to see one because he had fished for a decade or more, had never seen a swordfish.
Really?
And he had traveled multiple places. So then on Australia, the last 5-6 years, they started catching some swordfish down there. New Zealand was always known for swordfishing, but they catch some giant swordfish there. A lot of these fish are 300 to 700 pounds down there.
At nighttime?
Both night and day. So they got into the daytime fishing, yeah. So the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, the daytime fishing has really picked up there. So I went down there. It was probably, I don't know what it was, 4 or 5 years ago. The older I get, it's hard to remember. But we did catch and release a giant swordfish there. It was before I had killed the 757. So it was before that. We did it for a TV show, and they put a satellite tag in it, and we were off Tasmania, and it swam up to the coast there, maybe 200 miles away, the mainland of Australia, and kind of zigged and zagged, and that was cool, but we had let that fish go, and I don't know how much it weighed. We estimated 750, could have been 700, it could have been 800. There was a chance it was bigger than the one I killed. I will say with a swordfish, when he's in the water, you can tell he's big, but if you pull him in a boat, and his tail, his body's this big around, his tail's that fat, it could be 100 pounds more than you expected, just like that.
And so the other thing, too, that I think is interesting about that, swordfish are all over the world.
Almost every ocean, yeah.
That's kind of unusual, I would say, for a lot of fish, right?
No doubt about it, yeah, because you could catch them here, off California, off Africa,
Do you
Australia
know
to
anyone
Tasmania.
that's catching them off Africa? Like, is that or is
Yeah,
it
they catch them
commercial?
there. No, they do catch them there. I have a customer, John Patton. He's a friend too, from England. He just recently caught a 1,000-pound tiger shark off the beach, I think in Australia.
No
And
way.
he caught what we estimated was a 1,000-pound tiger shark here too. He may be the only person in the world to catch both a land-based and a boat-based 1,000-pound tiger. I don't know how many people have
Wow,
done that.
I never thought about that. That's crazy.
So I just sent him a picture, because I couldn't find him in a picture. It was 10 years ago. We used to catch some big tiger sharks here, but I know we got off the swordfish subject, but he just was recently in Australia and caught this giant tiger shark. We had awesome pictures. He's like, "Do you have any of the old pictures?" And I found some, but
that was here, right?
yeah, we used to. So I caught about 25 big tigers here. We could catch 4 or 5 a year, when they'd come here.
In the spring?
In the springtime, they'd eat the amberjacks spawn in the spring, so they'd eat those. But the last few years I tried, I didn't catch any. There's still a couple that come through, but there's so many other sharks, you just couldn't get the baits to them.
Yeah. Because that's funny. I remember that. I mean, I'm sure you've caught multiple,
Sure.
but I remember the one really big tiger that you caught. Because I don't know why, I've always been obsessed with sharks.
I know.
Like, I know that some people think it's like lamer or, like it's not as much as a sport fish, but for some reason, I'm just obsessed with them. So I remember almost before you became big for the swordfish stuff, I remember the sharks you
Sure.
caught. And those tigers off here were ridiculously big.
The tigers were cool. We'd use an amberjack for bait, and sometimes you use a fillet of amberjack, but when you put down a 40-pound amberjack for bait and you got a 600, 700, 800-pound tiger shark eating it, it's pretty cool. Those fish coming up to the boat. And I love sharks as a kid too. And with sharks, people either love them or hate them. Sharks are fun when you want to target them and catch them, but if they're eating all your fish that you want to keep, like say you're tuna fishing, they're eating all your tunas, are kind of frustrating. But to go out there and pull on a fish that could be that big, it's fun. And especially like off the shore. I mean, say you didn't have a boat, you weren't fortunate enough to be on a boat. A shark is a big giant fish you could catch from shore and have fun with. So
And they're like everyone says, oh, sharks, like they're trash fish.
Yeah.
Man, if you hook a black tip off the dock like I used to as a kid, that's a crazy fight. They're jumping, they're running. I mean, to me, I don't know what fight's much harder than that you can have access to. It's like, I don't know. I have a lot of love for sharks. So I appreciate that you give them their shine sometimes because they don't get enough sometimes.
Exactly. So like a black tip or a spinner shark. I mean, so for us, why would you fish for fish? Because it's fight hard, it jumps, it's exciting, the bite. A shark does a lot of that stuff, A big black tip shark, that's as exciting as a tarpon. That thing comes up jumping and spinning around.
Thank you.
It's
and they're beautiful. You get
cool
them up by
fish,
the boat, the gold and the purple, almost like a black tip almost has like this like rainbow sheen. I don't know. I'm always going to advocate for them because you know what kills me? You'll catch something and you don't know what it is first. And they're like, it might be a big tarpon. It's fighting so hard. Everyone's excited. Then they come up. Oh, it's a shark.
Yeah.
You didn't know until 10 seconds ago you were about to say this was the coolest thing you've ever done.
Yep.
Now it's like, who cares? I don't understand that. That's crazy to me. Like we caught that night shark. Remember that?
Yep, I remember on the bottom. Pretty rare too. Had the green eyes.
But
down
that
on
was
the bottom.
cool. I mean, what a crazy animal. I thought that was really cool.
I mean, you never caught a night shark before,
Never.
right? Yeah,
I've never seen one
30
before.
miles. We were 40 miles from home fishing that spot that day, so
that was. I mean, that's a pretty wild animal too. They
sure.
come up with the green eyes, and it's like. That was very lucky. Like, because to me, and I was very glad we caught a swordfish.
Sure.
But I'm a shark guy. Like, to be able to catch that night shark, I'm like, that is really cool.
Yeah.
But going back to the 757 pounder, which is it's a lot of numbers to say. That's a big fish. So, one thing that I think is interesting about you, there's a lot of good fishermen in the world, right? And you're definitely one of them. But you have been able to conquer. Well, I know you don't want me to be too overbearing about it.
Sure.
Maybe not conquer, but really, really had a lot of success in a completely different field that is obviously related to it because you're filming your fishing stuff. But take me through, you had been doing the YouTube stuff before that fish?
Yep. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube were all things I'd done. YouTube is different because you can actually make a living doing that. That's a career for a lot of people. And I didn't know that, until 5 years ago. But you're doing this thing, and I had fished with Robert from Arrington from Deer Meat for Dinner.
Right.
And he had encouraged another kid named Franklin, who is Raw Fishing was his show on YouTube as well. And those were two people that really said, hey, you should try this, man. You have a shot at this. You catch really cool fish like that. And only occasionally do you meet people in life that actually like want to help you and like say, why don't you come do this like that?
Right.
A lot of times people, they don't want to see you do better, than them. But so these people kind of encouraged me to do it. And I started doing it, and it was going, little by little. It's not like it was instant success. over a year. I did over a year before I ever made $1 on there or a dime.
Really? So this is before the 757?
Before the 757, yeah. So my first video was we caught lobster on mini season about a year and a half prior to that. So, and I don't make a killing on YouTube. I make a little bit of money, but it's really good for the brand, the business. You know, brings customers here, and it was a passion. I have a video film degree.
Right. Yeah, I read that, or I listened to interviews. So you went to college and you got a video degree.
I had a video and film degree, and it was always a little childhood dream to have a fishing show. And I had a friend, he passed away at a young age, Nick Blitz, and we had a show together called the Nick Outdoor Show.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was his name and idea, but we kind of did it together for years. And I was in college, and he passed away very young, 20 years old. And, you know, we didn't do anything for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. And then I said, we're doing it for Blitz. So we started filming it and doing it. And you know, the nickname was Stans. Like Stanczyk's my last name. It's Polish. Right. I didn't pick it, but that's what I was given.
Yeah.
It's hard to spell. You know,
it's hard to spell, but I think I've gotten it.
You probably got it, but anyhow, we started doing these YouTube videos and putting fish up there, and you know, I'm getting a few subs and doing this and that, and it's a lot of work. You gotta shoot the videos, you gotta edit the videos, you gotta upload them, you know. And the internet is a tough place. People want to criticize you and critique you all the time. You know, it's everyone's a keyboard warrior.
Oh,
so like, you know, they pick you apart, stuff like this, like something they could do better. They're telling you doing it wrong, but like you gotta brush it off. You can't let that stuff bother you. You know, right. You just gotta keep doing your thing. So I'd been doing YouTube for about a year and a half, and you know, I was getting a few more subs popping up, and that video hits, and within a week, it gets over 500,000 views, which were
right away.
So that was catching it, and I made a second video cleaning it and cooking it, and you know, filleting a fish that big was pretty cool too.
Oh yeah.
Those 2 videos there. After that, bunch of subscribers, the views were up, and I made a little bit of money on it, a couple grand a month, whatever it was at the time. And I said, hey, maybe this is actually starting to work finally. And that was kind of the kickstart to their career there on YouTube. You know, the Stans Fam channel. That just stands for Stanczyk family. Stans is short for Stanczyk.
So like when you were editing that video, were you like, oh, this might be it? Or were you just like, this is cool and I want to show people?
This is cool. I want to show people. I had my charter boat. You know, I had the Freeman then. I was like, I'll book charters of the people to see this. I didn't know that was going to be. YouTube is funny. Whenever you think you got it figured out, you don't. Like,
right.
You make a video you think's gonna be killer, you put up there, and it's like, meh.
Yeah.
Then you put up a video you don't expect to do good, and it, you know, gets 100,000 views in a few days. You're like, wasn't expecting that. So it can be tricky, and it's hard to understand the algorithms, you know, and all the social media platforms. But after that, you know, I saw hope and potential for it, and there was a lot of positive stuff from it. And I think it was a newspaper from Tampa, from the west coast of Florida, somewhere over there, had called me and they wanted to do an article about it. So I'm talking to this lady, and I didn't realize it, but I'd called them greenies too, because their point of the article was it ethical to fight a fish for 8 hours?
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know that, so I'm excited to talk about this. This is a fish. I'd fished my entire life for this fish. I'm excited talking about this fish. They're like, well, didn't you feel like you were torturing it, fighting it for 8 hours?
Did you start to figure it out during the questions?
So after all the questions, I started figuring it out. And I said, you know what? I said, mankind, we will fish and hunt and do all sorts of stuff, you know, outside like that till our extinction, you know, till we die. And we're just getting so soft as a society in some ways. And they started picking me apart. They put this article up there. I started getting messages on Facebook and Instagram.
Angry?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I'll have to show you some of them, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And they were just ripping me apart, some of these people. And I told the lady there, I'm doing this interview, I was like, and I realized, you know, which way it was going. I was like, what do these people expect to eat? You know, oh, they're going to go to the store and go buy fish. Where do they think fish comes from? Someone has to catch and kill it. You talk about a fish that's commercially caught, you know, we caught one fish in the ocean out there. The ocean's a huge place, you know. I know who caught that fish. I know we took care of it. That's a fish that we caught, we get to eat. I don't have to go to Publix and go buy fish. So I don't know what these people think, you know. They got to, you know, go to the store and buy it. Well, the fish has to get caught and killed before that, you know?
Well, no, they didn't see it happen, so it doesn't
Exactly.
count.
If you didn't see it happen, you know, it didn't matter.
The slaughterhouse is not, you didn't see it, so it's just a steak in the
Exactly.
saran
Out of
wrap.
sight, out of mind, you know, but this was a thing.
That's food, it's not a cow, you know? That's just food.
Yep. So this showed the whole process, you know, the one video was catching it, the next video was cleaning it and cooking it and whatnot, and, you know, that was just, you know, after that, I just kind of, you gotta thick skin and deal with it, and you know, that's just the world we live in here. And I remember I said, you know, what do all these greenies eat, you know? And we could find the article there, but I'm like, this was a fish, you know, it was a big fish. But it wasn't a unicorn, for God's sakes. You know, there's been commercially caught bigger fish, and a year or two later, a young kid caught one 10 pounds bigger off Fort Lauderdale area.
Really?
That's what they said. I didn't see it, but it was big in the picture. Hopefully. I mean, they said it was bigger. But
it's convenient that it was barely bigger. But anyways, that's not for me to say. That's just
no, they were good fishermen. I do believe. I mean, I don't think they would lie. But anyhow, yeah, you never know.
You never know.
Either way, It was right after I left my old sponsor, and they picked him up. But anyhow,
That's
keep that
interesting. Well, that's all we'll say. It's interesting.
We'll leave it there. But the point was, you know, you get these people. I was getting these rude messages and stuff like that, and like, I don't know. I don't go write those to people, but I had a lot of messages. But you know, it was the fish of a lifetime. Super happy we caught it. We got to eat it. Got to share it with family and friends, and you know, that was the fish we were after all those years.
So you got the full internet experience in like 1 week. You went from putting something, not knowing what's going to happen, it goes viral,
Yep.
and then someone's mad at you immediately. Like
from the top to the bottom, and at the end of it, I was almost frustrated, and I almost wanted it to be over because
Really?
of that. You know, after the week or two, but I shouldn't let them win.
they didn't win.
They didn't
though.
win. Look at us
Yeah,
now. We're
yeah.
doing pretty good.
Yeah, but it's amazing too how something like that, especially with YouTube and especially with like the way that social media, that fish lives on. Like I see stuff about that fish still. Like people go, "Oh, have you seen this thing?" It's like,
Sure.
dude, that happened years ago. It's amazing. I mean, look at me and you talking about fish Zane Grey caught 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Like it really is.
Sure.
There's something about fishing where it's like, it's kind of evergreen content. When like you catch something that big, you could be 15. You probably will be talking about it 30 years from now.
And that could go down as the biggest one that we ever caught and killed. You know, maybe that one in Tasmania was bigger that we let go, but that fish is the defining point of my career up to this point. And
Yeah.
there's a good chance it'll die, and that'll still be it. That'll be what I was known for, and the fish that I take to the grave with me. You know.
It's a beautiful thing, man. And it's
So.
like, it's cool that it happened, you know? But so tell me about when you start doing YouTube and now you got all the merch and you got so many different things going on. Did you just like, I'm just going to start doing this? You didn't have like a distinct plan beforehand, or you just kind of figured it out?
You know, we're still trying to figure out. So the marina is a family business, and probably anybody watching here knows that family businesses are very difficult, very tough,
Oh, yeah.
very tricky. I want to try to do my own thing, you know. So, and one day, you know, me and my brother will probably take over the marina. But my dad always made a good living with it. But you know, you're gonna have to you got this. You got uncles, you got brothers, you got kids, you got wives now. Like, so I need to do something on my own. So the fishing charters, the YouTube, and then I'd bought a boat I could barely afford 7 or 8 years ago. I bought my first Freeman like that.
Which are not cheap. Freeman's,
not
they don't
cheap,
give
so.
them away. I'll tell you that.
And I got B-level pro staff pricing back then.
Really?
I beat him up for it now though.
Yeah,
We gotta
yeah.
take that one to the bank.
Now you're
so
getting
I
it.
still got the original email because I wasn't. I'm sort of famous, I guess you could say. It's kind of weird to say that, but my reputation was not 7 or 8 years ago what it is now. You know, when
Well,
I'm
it's
trying
before the
I'm-
757.
Before
now,
that, a lot of
now
people
we're
saw.
changed world, baby.
Yeah. But that was before I really took to social media. And social media for me is a big part of my living, you know, and my income and my business. And there's a lot of good things with social media. There's some bad stuff too, but it was a great way to build a brand, to build a charter business, to meet people around the world, and you can share your passion with other people that love to fish. So you know, get around like-minded people. So there's a lot of good to it as well. But so yeah, we started doing YouTube 4.5 years ago. Like I said, I was a kid. I always wanted to have a fishing show, and it'll be 5 years in July. But I always wanted to have a show, and for years, you know, I had some other sponsors that worked with me. I said, you know what? I said, I do all this work here. I'm the one out there catching all the fish. I'm out there breaking my back. Like, people, you know, I love to fish. I have more in common with all these people than these big corporations. Why don't we start our own brand? So then we started the Stands brand, and you know,
It's high quality
Stand
too.
Fishing.
Like you guys
Yeah,
got a
it's
lot
comfortable.
of. It's so interesting too, and so I have two questions based off that, but that I've wanted to ask you. One of the first things that I think is unique about you as well, that my friend Captain Chip Love, who's a big fan of yours, that talks to me about this, so I got to give him a shout out.
I got to fish with him.
But he's a legend. One of the only guys that I think can stack up with you when it comes to legendary fish. Like those giant great whites are pretty crazy too.
Lifeless eyes.
But
black
anyways,
eyes.
oh yeah, baby. But that's a whole nother. You're gonna get me on a tangent. But all I'm gonna say is this: I think one of the coolest things that me and Chip have talked about, that you include your family, your wife, your daughters, and like it becomes a very like honest look. Like you're not sitting there trying to make a show where you're faking it or like, you know, lying about what's going on. It's very honest and real. And like, how has that been kind of like, because obviously it's not difficult, but it's touchy waters when you're including
Sure.
stuff like that. Was that ever a consideration, like not putting them on there, or like?
Definitely, you know, so it is a very touchy situation because you're putting yourself out there, you're putting your family out there, but you know, I just wanted to show my life, and I felt like I lived in a content-rich environment down here in the Keys, a beautiful place. You know, I grew up here, and so I've got 2 young daughters, Claire and Sadie, and Sarah's my wife, and we had 2 young kids at home, the last 5 years. So Sadie's 5, Claire's 2. Maybe I just said that, I can't remember. But you got people sometimes that they insult you or your family or your children like that, and it is can be kind of frustrating. But you just got those people on the inside. Those people are hurting themselves. Those people ain't happy with their own lives. They're going to pick you apart and your life apart. But we're up at we just had a big tournament here this weekend in Miami. So I just came back today from that, and these people are walking up. I got kids that are 4 years old smiling, cheesing, like this, because they saw me coming up. The guy couldn't talk, and the guy's like, hey, my kid's a big fan. It's so cool because those people who relate to, like, oh, where's Sadie at, stuff like
Right.
that. And then I have people that, they're my age, that are adults, and you can relate to these people that are little kids to, grandparents, and they follow along, and people come by the marina all the time, like, hey, we love watching, and whenever they're the wives there, the girls, like, where's Sadie at, where's Claire? And it's cool because, they follow along our lives and like the fishing, the diving, the lobster.
It's genuine and
it's genuine,
relatable.
Yeah, we're just normal people out there, and I know the internet, and social media can make it look different, but I'm just this same old person, like that, and just like you. But it's cool, because you get to bring enjoyment to these people's lives, and they kind of live vicariously through, and I live vicariously through other people too. And
Right.
if maybe I love fishing, that is what I really love, and if I can fish with my daughters as they grow up, hopefully some other guy or some other family watching the show will say, hey, maybe we should go fishing, and maybe they will go out there one day and make a memory and come down here to Bud and Mary's Marina and take their kids fishing. Maybe they get into it, and that could be something you could do with your family your entire life. And it's brought me, that's been my purpose in life, fishing, my enjoyment, the biggest enjoyment in life is fishing there, my family, and I get to share that passion with people, and people get to watch it, and it's fun when you edit a video. The editing can be boring and tough, but the finished product is nice, and when you watch it, whether or not I made a living doing YouTube, I've said this before, I could still go back and watch my life, say, hey, 3 or 4 years ago we went on this family trip to the Bahamas, and we fed the pigs a couple years ago
and you're documenting
down there.
stuff
Then you get to relive it, and get to watch it, and maybe you encourage somebody else to go do that trip, or maybe someone's having a bad day and they can't enjoy it, but seeing that they're at work, but they get to see that and watch it, say, I want to be there one day, and then they save up and they get to go out there and get to do something similar themselves. So it creates a lot of good, and it's been a lot of fun. It's met a lot of people, been a lot of places now, and I want to keep traveling, keep doing that, and bring the kids along, and hopefully have an enjoyable life.
It's crazy to me too, and I've seen this a lot of times because Nick used to give me bait sometimes, still does sometimes. I'll come up and be like, man, let me get some bonitas. Actually, one day gave me a lot of bait. All those bonitas, I still have some in the freezer. But anyways, one thing that I think is crazy, that people there's different rankings of stuff, right? Like if you're, I have friends that play in the NHL. When we go to Walgreens and someone comes up to them, okay, it's cool that you were good enough at hockey that people are coming up to you. Some people are singers, some people are this. When you're so good at fishing and making stuff, that we came back from the day that me and Nick fish, and other days, there are people waiting at this guy's slip. I've been here when he's not here and had people taking pictures going, that's Nick Stanczyk's thing. And to me, I don't know how to say it, because fishing is always almost like, when I'm growing up, I loved fishing, but I wasn't talking to girls in school about yeah, I like fishing. To be able to make it something where you're like this celebrity figure from catching fish, you got to be pretty good at fishing. And I think that's a very it almost is counts more than if you did something that normally has celebrityness. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's really strange and weird, and I don't want to sound cocky and arrogant and stuff like that. I always try to stay humble, but it is strange to me that is our life now, though, that.
Crazy.
And it's nothing to be here, and have 20, 30 people in a day stop by.
Every day. And he's not just saying, I've witnessed it. They're waiting at the dock, and you were very nice. You go up to every one of them, take pictures, because a lot of them were kids that are staring there literally about to cry because they're me and Nick in real life. It's crazy. I've had people text me about, dude, Nick Stanczyk follows you. I'm like, yeah, man, I know him. They're like, what? It's kind of crazy the way that social media and the internet amplifies things that, as you said, I've seen you when I was a kid coming to Bud and Mary's. I've been seeing you this whole time. It's amazing the way that it kind of the business and everything. But one thing that I wanted to ask you too, because with the good, right? I think fishing is, there's certain sports are for instance, if you were a singer, no one would ever be shaming you or giving you crap because you're so big time. I think fishing is, because it's such an old guy's sport of crusty, everyone's been sitting there doing it for years.
Yeah.
How has that been navigating being so big time or whatever in a place in an industry that's very almost anti that,
Yeah. So it's been tricky for sure. Fishermen have egos, you know.
Oh yeah.
So that's why I have to sit this far apart. But anyhow, no, I try to keep a small ego. Like, egos are not your amigos. What the old saying is. You know, they're not good, but obviously we want to catch fish. We want to be the best at it. Nobody want a fisherman that does it for a living or even fun, recreation. Like, you don't want to go there and not catch anything. We still want to catch fish, but there's days you don't catch anything. But fishing with social media was very tough, and especially YouTube. You know, we grew up fishing, learning these techniques and these trades, these skills, and very hush hush and quiet. And my uncle, I remember, you know, he hated the magazine articles years ago because they wanted to do all this how-to stuff just to get other people involved in it. But this is something that, you know, you spend years out there learning how to do, and then someone can pick up a magazine and give it away. And same with YouTube and Instagram. And I do share a lot of stuff. You know, people pick up stuff. Like, I don't do a full-fledged, you know, how-to thing all the time. But, you know, if people are watching, say, hey, using, you know, this jig or this lure or this is bait and his weight, they can learn. And I do get that. Like, hey, I learned a lot from your videos, and that's great. But fishermen in general, they don't want to necessarily share their trade secrets. So that is the big, a big distinction between, you know, YouTubers a lot of times.
Right.
Plus that, because the YouTubers they want to get the views. You know, they want to tell people, they want to give away information, knowledge, which is fine because they make their money off of entertainment on YouTube.
Right.
But these guys that make their living fishing, it's harder for them if there's 10 boats in the same spot next time. Like, oh yeah, we're fishing this bridge on the outgoing tide to catch tarpon. Then these guys that make their living that way have to deal with it. So it can be tough, and it definitely ruffles some feathers. And I ain't saying I'm the best fisherman. People are like, oh, he's the best fisherman. I never say that, but like, I just say, no, maybe I'm the best on Instagram because I put the stuff out there, but it's for entertainment purposes, and it's for building the business, for bringing people down here to Islamorada to fish at our marina and all that stuff. So it's tough. I mean, no doubt about it. A lot of people are sour about it, and you know, you can block people. Say on Instagram, there's these people out there. I never even met them before, and they got me blocked. And then someone's like, oh, you're on his page. You know, I'm like, there's one guy. It looks like a girl. I don't know. He looks like Bruce Jenner kind of. But I'm up there. I'm like blocked on his page. They're like, oh, you're on there. And he puts a picture of me up there, you know, and just running his mouth talking smack. Like, I can't even message him or anything like that. I'm like, you know, like the guy's
he pre-blocked you.
Yeah, pre-blocked me. I've never met the guy before, you know. And
I've never seen the pre-block.
The pre-block,
That's interesting.
and then one of my customers had questioned him on like, oh, why did you kill that fish, something like that. And then he's like, oh, you're a big guy, and it took one of his pictures that I was in because the guy had charged me before, and like puts it on his page, blasting me and writing me, and you can't defend yourself. And I didn't even know the person, but that's kind of funny. That's just the problem with social media. And everyone's a big person behind the screen, but you know, they won't say it to your face.
Does that ever bother? Because to be honest, personally, sometimes, and I've gotten way better at it now, but there was times, especially when I was running Barstool Outdoors, we'd post something on there, and I wouldn't even think about it. I'd be like me and you looking in the stomachs of those swordfish, I remember. Yeah. And I get someone on there saying something, like you genuinely, I would put it on there like, wow, this is cool. And you don't even think about it.
Right.
And then you're getting messages, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, he's an idiot. Like, does that ever, because I'll admit there's times where I've been like, what? Because you're taken aback. Like, I'm like, what about this could have been negative?
Yeah.
Like, has there ever been a time where you had to like remind yourself? Because you're very like, you get so much success from it and things, but it's like there's had to have been a time where you're like, whoa, what's going on here?
For sure, 100%. And I've kind of slowed down a little bit the last year on social media as well. But there's, you know, and I'd like to think you shouldn't care what other people think, you know, or say. And it doesn't really matter, but we're all humans, you know. When people say stuff, you know, sometimes it bothers you, you know, like, what did I do? You know, what did I say? You know, or what I act in. And it does bother me, you know, the comments, you know, and stuff like that sometimes, but I try to brush it off the best I can. And my wife, Sarah, she's really good at that. Like, she doesn't let it bother her, but like, it does bother me a little bit because I want to tell the truth. Like, hey, that's not the truth. You know, like this is what really happened. You know, like
that's what bothers me. You're like, what?
They can get a cheap shot in there with even though it's not legitimate. You know.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I just want the truth to be told most of the time. And,
so what, it's interesting you say that about your wife, because like, what's it like in the Stanczyk household? Like, is everyone, your daughters just used to vlog? Like, are they doing their own stuff? Like, I feel like you guys are the most fluent in that kind of thing per capita in a family. Like, each member knows what they're doing.
And I will say, Sarah was not crazy. She still doesn't necessarily like YouTube that much.
Really?
Yeah, so she was not a big proponent of it the first few years I did it, and I worked so hard on it because I wanted to succeed, you know, that much. And it's not like it was instant success, you know. But I was fishing. We had a young daughter at home at the time, you know, because Sadie just turned 5, so a young kid at home. So when I got home, I was fishing, you know, 10, 12 hours a day on the boat, come home, eat dinner, be around the kids for a few minutes. I'd go on the computer for 2, 3, 4 hours a night, edit a video, do that, you know, 3, 4, 5 nights a week too. So, you know, life is a balance, you know, and the better work does, sometimes the home life suffers and vice versa. And she didn't necessarily like it, but I wasn't going to give up on it. And then about a year and a half ago, she started helping edit the videos, and she does a really good job. And you can always tell when Sarah edits the video or I do, because
Really?
mine are plain or simple. Hers are better off, a good intro in there. She cuts to the music in the beginning always. And she's done a great job with it. So she's kind of come more on board now. But, we had 2 young kids at home, so that was kind of a full-time job for her. And whatnot. But Sadie, she's a little ham for the camera. She smiles a lot. Claire's just starting to talk. She's like a little animal, though.
You got 2 of the cutest daughters I've ever seen, too.
We call her Brutus. So if she sees this in 20 years, I'm sorry, Brutus. But she destroys stuff. She beats up her poor older sister. Takes
Really?
her sister in the head. Yeah. But they love eating fish, and I love. So many people love that. We'd catch a fish. And I'm not like a great fancy cook, but I could cook a piece of fish, usually decent. But people love seeing the kids eat fish because the kids are honest. They'll tell you whether it's good or not.
Oh yeah.
When the kids spit out the food, they don't like it. It's kind of frustrating. But they like it, and. You're in the grocery store there and people stop. It's like, oh, it's Sadie, it's your daughter, Sadie and Claire's like, and it's cool. Most people are nice. And, once in a while you do have to worry about, maybe a creep or a weirdo, out there, someone, you do have to worry about that. But, overall it's been very good. And, I take Sadie to school in the morning, and one of her teachers there, her son is a big Stans fan. We call them Stans fans.
Yeah.
And, they stop and talk all the time. So that's cool, and just say hey to him. I see him in the morning a lot, young kid. But it's been cool, get the families involved and just show our life down here, and people come down here and experience the same thing we can,
And how old? Like when are we getting Sadie's own YouTube channel? Like is that's got to be in the plans? No,
Nah,
she's
maybe.
like, to me it's like it's like a NHL player's son. Like when's he gonna start playing? It's
Sure.
like, dude, she's born into it. Like when's she gonna be live?
We'll see, and I think we all do, probably yourself included, like a love-hate relationship with social media.
Oh, yeah.
Because there is a lot of good with it, but there's bad and negative stuff too. It's addicting, honestly. Like I look at my phone up 100 times a day, like kind of sad, honestly. Like it gives, you're this, I know what it is, dopamine in your brain, like 100%. That. When you look at that, like it excites you. But for me, it is part business too. That is how I make part of my income. So it's a fine line, just the balance and all that stuff. So. I haven't done an Instagram page for like the kids yet or anything like that. I've thought about it because maybe later on in life they could use it and have a head start and advantage.
They could be 15 and be gifted one with 20K. That's a big thing.
Exactly, for sure. And same with YouTube and all that stuff. But we'll see. I'm not doing it yet. We're holding off on it. It's nice to have your life somewhat private too sometimes. Right. So when you do put out there, it can be a little tricky. So just trying to find that balance, where you show what you want to show and having fun, like still staying somewhat reserved and keeping time for your, you don't want to have a camera out 24/7. Right. I don't anyhow, filming my family and everything we're doing. Like we did do that when we go on a trip or hanging out by the pool, relaxing. We still want to do that sometimes and just put the camera down and relax. And I think you just got to find that balance.
So out of everything other than the 757, because that doesn't count. Other than that, what is your proudest moment with? I mean, it could just be in fishing or in filming stuff. But what's something that really when you think about it makes you excited? Because you've caught a lot of fish over the years.
Yeah, we've caught a lot of fish. That I would say, that big sword was the big sword. Obviously, will go down. What we're best known for. But there's another picture up there of a big dolphin. I was 16 years old at that time, and it was 51 and a half pounds on a fly rod. I'm not really a fly fisherman, but I fought that fish for 5.5 hours. 5 hours and 20 minutes on a fly rod.
What tippet was it?
15-pound tippet, so it would have been classified as 16 pounds. So let's call it 16-pound tippet. We were within 20 or 30 minutes, we're about to gaff this fish, and the fish goes down 300 or 400 feet.
A dolphin?
A dolphin, yeah. So we're taking our time getting back
weird,
up there.
Right?
Yeah, once in a while, a big bull will go down deep and down and dirty, we call it, and turn sideways, get that big head, sideways. And come up, but you get this fish up, and I'm young, and I wasn't much of a fly fisherman, but we had hooked this big fish, and I had fought it, and we were talking about earlier, you fight these big long fights. Like at some point, you fight him for hours, you think you're gonna catch him, but there's a point where the chance of catching him starts going down, where the line is getting weaker, the hole in the fish's mouth from the hook is getting bigger, where the chance to catch the fish is getting less and less, and finally. I'd had enough. I was worn out and tired. I started, adding the extra pressure to the reel, which I probably should have done sooner, but not being a very avid fly fisherman, I caught a few fish on fly. I didn't want to, break them off, but we finally caught the fish, and George gaffed it, and I was on my Uncle Scott catch 22 on his boat, with my dad and all that stuff. And it was a state record. I think it may still be a state record on fly for Florida. 51 and a half pounds. It was 2 pounds shy of the world record.
Wow.
People talk about 50-pound dolphin all the time. Like, oh, we caught a 50-pounder. when you hang up and weigh a 50-pound dolphin compared to a 50-pounder, two different things, especially on fly. So that was a really exciting fish. I was 16 years old back then, and
Things as big as you in that.
yeah,
picture.
it was a nice big bull. So that was an exciting one, and that was it mentally and physically it tests you as much as your angler skills. The mental stuff, those long fights on fish, the mental side of it, not losing focus and staying there, not making. You make one mistake there, add a little too much pressure, this or that, you turn the boat the wrong way, the fish is gone. So
and it's so unforgiving.
Exactly.
Like, that's the worst part. When I've lost a fish after a long time, it's like either tip wraps or something,
Yep.
and it's like they don't care. There's no amount of like, oh, he did pretty good for 4 hours, let's give him a break. It's like literally you're just done, and that's it.
Yep, that's
and
it.
It's just the most sinking feeling. I remember Skip Nielsen, who I know is a Bud and Mary's legend as well.
For sure.
Me and him went out one day on the first growth, and I'd never caught a big hammerhead. We were out on, I forgot what reef, but out there, and we hooked this huge hammerhead. I fought it for 3 hours, get it up. And I love Skip, I'm not going to be mad, but we had been filming the whole time, and the camera was full. This was like 2007, 2008, before there was like cameras that like you could have big memory cards. Sure. And we got him up kind of, and it was full. So then I'm like, hold on, and I give him the rod. I go to clear off because you couldn't just delete the whole thing.
Right.
I was like, we might want these.
Clear up clips. Yeah.
Comes back down, gets back. I'm like, okay, Skip, you going? And it came off after it's like, so the second time he came back, and we sat there legitimately. I think 20 minutes didn't speak. Like It wasn't even mad. It was like it's just empty, and we're just like, oh my! There's nothing like it, man. And it will humble you more than anything in the world, because guess what? If you lose a game, like maybe the other team's celebrating all this, when a fish gets away, you never see him again. They're not talking to you. You're just sitting there, and you just feel like an idiot, and it's over.
Yeah, but there may not be like a game. You might play that team again later in the season.
Right.
That swordfish, you probably, that hammerhead, you probably ain't fighting them again that year.
Ever.
Ever.
And no one cares. If you have no video, no picture, you get nothing. There's no amount of like.
You can't look at that picture, years later and say, remember that? You have nothing to remember it by. So.
Right. And that's just unforgiving.
And I know. Fishermen like having pictures. Look at all these pictures up here.
Oh.
It's memories, these trips and these people that you do these things with, and that's, like you're talking about Skipping, he's a legend, obviously, and that's what I love having pictures and videos and documenting stuff just so you can look back years later and remember it,
And the good news is Skippy's put me on about 1 billion more fish since then, so I can't complain. But this is my last, it actually is a complaint, my last thing, because I know your dad's getting here. Your dad, I got to tell you too, I told you this when we fish, I still get scared when I see this guy come around the dock sometimes, because he is a true legend. Like, that is crazy. This wasn't my complaint, but just when I saw him, it's like, was there ever like a lot of pressure growing up as like his son?
A little bit. It was weird too, because like we just grew up around this marina, it's just a basic fishing marina. There's nothing fancy here, but it's like captains and the caliber of the fishermen here that make it what it is. But now as I get older, it's like world famous Bud and Mary's Marina. This thing's been around since 1944, and the expectations of you, with your father and my uncles, the Catch for Two Scott is that's who, I grew up fishing with him. He always ran the boat. My dad owned it. I fished with my uncle a lot too. And the expectations are very high because of these people that you grew up around, your family and stuff like that. So
right.
you want to make them happy. And I think every kid wants to make their family happy, their parents happy. And it can be tough for sure, because obviously you don't want to disappoint them. But now we're a lot alike, I think, me and my dad, personality wise. I don't know if it's not all good either.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a good or bad thing there, but it's just weird. I didn't think of it, but now as I get older, I realize, and there's a lot of respect in the sport fishing community for people like that. And it's been cool because there's people that stop by here and they're like, you know what? I fished here as a little kid with my father, with my grandparents, and they made memories coming here. And, one day this will be our, me and my brothers, and hopefully we can provide that service, having these captains here where other people from around the world come here and fish and make memories and all that stuff.
Every day I'm here, people from international. It's crazy. Bud and Mary's has been like, it's weird because it's like literally your home and a thing that you guys have had for 50 years now, 60 years?
Yeah, my dad got it in 1978, so that's like 45 years almost. Or 45 years.
I'm not a math guy. That would have taken
I knew
me
it was
second.
around close, so because I know it's 8 and 5, so I think it's 45 years this year. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm 30.
Man.
I just turned 38 last week, so he's he had it before I was born, and hopefully we'll have it for a long time to come. And raise. My brother has 2 kids, and brother Ricky has 2 boys. I have 2 girls, and hopefully they'll grow up here. Hanging out on the docks, and we'll go on fishing trips and all that stuff. And yeah, so the expectations were high. You have these family members, but
It's also literally when you walk around, like I'm sure when you were a kid, it's like your dad has more amazing like pictures and fit. It's like it's very intimidating. I'm sure when you're walking around, it's like, man, I got a lot to live up to. You know what I mean? It's like there's reminders everywhere. Like he's done it over and over and over again. That what bonefish is that?
So that bonefish over there was 14 pounds, 6 ounces.
Is that Vic?
Vic Gaspenny was the angler. My dad was the captain on it. And that was a world record fly bonefish on 12-pound tippet for a long time.
That's a moose.
They fished years and years for it. And the big bonefish off Islamorada kind of have disappeared the last 10 years, unfortunately. There's a lot of smaller ones, which is a good sign, but you don't see those double-digit bonefish like we used to as a kid growing up. And bone fishing with my father as a kid, and I never really caught him here on fly. I've caught a couple nowadays, but we would throw a shrimp. And a bonefish, when you threw a shrimp, it was like very exciting. You're pulling my dad's pulling a boat, me and my brother. These big bonefish are tailing there 8, 10, 12 pounds occasionally. And if you threw the shrimp too close, they would spook.
Right.
And my dad was very serious. He would yell and get very mad.
Oh.
So these bonnet head sharks would swim by, and they weren't as spooky. I loved catching the bonnet heads.
I love bonnet heads.
So I would catch all the sharks. I remember one time I caught 13 sharks, and I caught a 10-pound bonefish. But I had more fun catching the sharks. I don't know if that was because my dad wouldn't yell if I missed the shark.
Right.
But I just enjoyed catching them, and my dad would be cursing up there, if I spooked the bonefish. And, if you're a fan, if you're a person, you're fishing with your kids, I would say you can be serious, but kids are kids still, like that. And don't take it too seriously. You want them still to enjoy it, and you don't want to fish to ruin it. It's still fishing. It's supposed to be fun and enjoyable. But, yeah, that was a big bonefish they caught. It was a record for a long time. It's not a record anymore. It was beat. They don't think the fish that beat it was legitimate, so they kind of quit record fishing after that. Because a lot of these other countries in the world years ago would weigh these fish. They could be shorter and skinnier, but weigh more because they wanted people to come to these. The fish in the Bahamas beat it, supposedly. Bahamas are known for a lot of small fish. There's some big ones there, but they want you to come to these islands. And that happens to different countries all around the world where they were illegitimate records and fish weighed and caught. And, you saw it with marlin, too, in certain places.
I didn't think about that.
These marlins were caught. So, like, oh, yeah, come here. It's, biggest bonefish in the world caught. Or come here, the biggest, marlin in the world caught. Or the biggest marlin this pound test. Where, so unfortunately, seeing these pictures, just knowing that some of those fish weren't legitimate. So, but it was a record for a long time. And the idea of records is really cool and great. But just, human nature, humans are not always.
It's muddy. Muddy.
Humans aren't honest, and people do deceitful things and whatnot. But I haven't always been, that was a state record dolphin. But I had a couple of junior world records as kids. I think they both been beat. I know they have, but I fished because it was fun. We did a lot of tournaments growing up, but nowadays I have taking a charter with somebody is happy just being out there. That's what I love to see.
Right.
So.
Right. I remember growing up. Didn't they have that fish at Uncle's or something?
Uncle Joe Lepre there, he loved bonefishing too, and there's a lot of record fish there. And I don't know, there was a lot of records caught in Islamorada on bonefish, both on fly and bait. I don't know if it was that one in particular there, but
I knew the name Vic Gaspenny growing up.
That could have been there, yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Like I never met him, but I knew who that was because of that fish. Because this is so this leads me to my last point.
Yeah.
And I got a beef with you because, and you may know what's coming, but so growing up, the first time I ever went out on a charter, anything in my life was at Bud Mary's. I was a little kid, and I remember, everything about the place. You say, oh, it's just a normal marina, but to me, there's something. I've been to a lot of marinas. There's something almost mythical about this place to me. It's a special place where it's the history, the amount of fish caught here, the legendary anglers that have fished out of here.
Sure.
And always growing up, I remember the tarpon one with the sport fishing thing, which you told me is fake now.
Yeah, we caught that giant tarpon years ago. I was a little kid, and that was the biggest tarpon I ever caught in my entire life.
It's huge.
And
185?
We guessed it at around 180 pounds.
Yeah.
And we didn't know. And nowadays, the last 20 years, we've learned so much about fish, like sailfish and tarpon. A lot of those fish, if you're going to catch and release them, the survival rate is much better. Keep them in the water, not pull them out. We didn't know that about a lot of these fish 20 years ago.
Right.
So we pulled that big fish in the boat to get pictures. We couldn't get it out of the boat. My dad. So that's 25 years ago. So my dad's still 50 something years old. Then I'm, whatever I am, 15 years old or something like that. We got the fish in this little 16.5 foot Maverick. We couldn't get it out of the boat. It took an extra 2 or 3 minutes to get out. And, we did try to revive the fish the best we can. So I hope it lived. But the guy with us had taken that picture, and he put a sport fishing logo on the cover. It was like a fake magazine cover that you can take anywhere. So this guy that had worked at Sport Fishing Magazine was there to kind of document, take pictures. He had put that on there, and put the sport fishing logo and a couple little headlines on there.
Yeah,
and
it said something like the magic kid or like
and
the
everyone
wonder.
thought it was real for all these years. My dad hung it up there, but it was just a fake cover. It wasn't real. So I'm glad that we got to mess with it for all
No,
those
but
years.
when I was growing up, I'm like, oh my, because you were like, you're what, 6 or 7 years, you're 7 years older than me.
Yeah.
I was probably like 12, 13, seeing that thing in the tackle shop. I'm like, oh my God, like this guy is
and it was a
larger
fake
than
cover.
life. He
It
was
was a
on the
fake
cover of the
cover,
thing. I'm like,
Nah, I
because
wish.
it was one thing when you see a grown up on the
Sure,
cover.
right.
When I'm like, this guy was my, like,
Yeah,
that
young
was
kid, yeah.
legendary to me. And is that you in the picture with the giant tiger? I don't know. It might be in the tackle shop now. The huge one that was caught here that they killed and brought up.
So I stood in there. So my dad has a famous line. This is my dad saying, he's like, he claims that he's a legend, and he is a legend. We can credit
He
him
is
that,
a
sure.
legend, yeah.
So he's like, and he always like, a lot of people call me a legend. And he always says, and he goes, how I got to be that way? And people are like, how? He goes, by taking pictures with other people's fish. So they used to keep tiger sharks, and unfortunately, they don't keep tiger sharks anymore.
Right.
As humans, we've learned so much about fish and their health to try to release them to keep these fisheries healthy. And these fish, it's one thing if someone's going to eat it, but to kill and waste is, sinful, obviously. But people used to bring in these big tiger sharks, and as I was probably 7 or 8 years old in that picture, we're standing by this big 600-700 pound tiger shark with the jaws open, but we didn't catch it. One of the boats had caught it and brought it in there.
That was like
Whatnot,
Jaws.
so.
Like that picture is pretty
It's an
intimidating.
insane picture for sure. It's me and my brother, I think my dad there, and this giant shark, hanging up there. And it's kind of old school, it's 35, whatever it is, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But so we definitely took a few pictures. My dad was notorious for it. If someone brought a big fish in here to his marina, he was standing by it for a picture if he didn't catch it. So
That's smart. I don't see the problem. I feel like that's a guy that knows how to work the system.
there was marketing for sure, that
marketing,
and whatnot.
man.
And, it's just, and it was the group of guys here, the captains here, that made it what it is. It wasn't just us and our family. It was all these guys here that work so hard and are
Right.
so passionate about fishing. Like you said, Skip Nielsen or Paul Ross or Scott Stanczyk or Alex Adler and all the backcountry guides there.
Oh,
Jimmy
yeah.
Albright, Vic Gaspenny,
Glenn,
and
the Gone Fishing
Gone
5.
Fishing 5 Glenn. So you were talking about Vic Gaspenny that caught that big bonefish. He was my dad's friend forever, and he was the angler on over 200 swordfish, rod
Wow,
and reel.
yeah.
And we don't really fish much anymore. Are together, we work, have families and kids and all that stuff, and he's close to my dad's age. I'm probably 75 years old, but very accomplished fisherman and angler and stuff like that, and pioneered a lot of different types of fishing.
Did you ever think about going into backcountry like bonefish type of stuff, or was swordfish always like your calling?
I always liked the blue water, the offshore better, but I had a twin diesel boat, and I was going to sell it. It was named the B&M 2. That was the first boat I'd bought. The B&M was the one my dad owned, a 34 Crusader. I didn't always have a fancy go fast boat. I used to have, it was like kind of like the Orca from Jaws,
Yeah.
It was a basic twin diesel boat. So I grew up on that one, 7 years ran that for my dad. Then I bought my own boat, a 36-foot Jersey Devil Express, and Express Sportfish, 36-foot. But I hated the engine room. I hated going in there, changing oil.
The diesel fumes
on that
oh.
stuff. So I wanted to get this outboard catamaran center console. But before I ordered that catamaran, I almost got a bay boat because I'm tired of this offshore stuff. It's very hard to make a living fishing, and to especially make a good living. You might pay your bills, but very hard. Boats break. There's a lot of expenses, a lot of costs.
The fish don't cooperate.
The fish don't always cooperate. Nothing guarantee. And I was gonna get a bay boat, so I'd called up these companies. That was before I had all these big social media accounts, like with Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. And they're like, "Oh, you can go to the dealer and they'll give you the captain's discount." And it was like very minor.
Right.
It crushed my ego too. So then I had reached out to Freeman. I heard of these boats, and they said, "Okay, we'll give you this and whatnot." And I jumped on with them, and thank God, they built a great boat and they've done very well. And no doubt, working with these other companies, they help establish my name in the community. But we had a very good relationship together. I'm sure I've sold a lot of boats for them, and they booked a lot of charters, and I made some money selling, my old boats and stuff like that. The boats, to get a Freeman, it's a 4 to 5 year wait to get a new one. So a used one is very valuable, if people want them. So that part's been good, but I tried to get this bay boat, and when that company had shot me down and said no, I was like, I'll get this offshore center catamaran. It was a year wait back then.
Wow.
It was 11 months, and that was a long time, but then it went to a 5 year wait, which was crazy. So if you didn't put a deposit down and have a few deposits, you weren't getting a new boat for a long time. But I could, my life could have been different. I could have got a bay boat. If that company said, "Oh yeah, we'll give you a good deal, we'll give you a pro staff pricing, we'll do that," and they didn't do it. And I'm kind of glad it worked out that way, because the sword fishing is what I will be known for, in the fishing world. But, that company could have said, "Oh, yeah, we'll give you that good deal." And I might have been a tarpon fisherman or a snook fisherman or a bay fisherman, and it didn't work out that way. And it's funny, too, because I remember going to a big tackle trade show, trying to get sponsors, trying to get help with products, for the boat, because fishing, like I said, is a hard way to make a living. There's a lot of cost with it, the tackle, the maintenance, the wear and tear, motors, engine,
Being
insurance.
in the sun all day.
And the sun
everything.
destroying your body, skin cancer. My dad's a ton of skin cancer. But I remember one company in particular, I was trying to get product from them, And they said, oh, no, we can give you, maybe a little discount. I was like, that's good. My friend had got product from him, and like, he fished a little bit, but only like part-time. I was doing it full-time as a living. And then years later, I got 100,000 followers on Instagram, and I got YouTube, and I got, a bunch of people on Facebook. Like, oh, we'd love to work with you. I'm like, I bet you would now. But now it costs.
Right. Yeah. So before I would have loved
before
it.
I could have been loyal, if they would have took a chance on me in the beginning, before, I was before something, a name to contend with in this, name in the sport fishing world, I would have stayed with them, very loyal. But for some of these companies, and obviously it did hurt my ego a little bit, but they didn't want to do it back then. But now they want to do it after I've proven myself. But I want to be with a company who believed in me back then, like kind of Freeman did,
Right.
Before I was well known, So it was nice to have that feeling.
One thing that's interesting too, that obviously you're known for the swordfish and like Islamorada, all that kind of stuff. But I always think it's funny. I remember one day I thought your account got hacked because you post a picture in all camo, and I was like, took me like 5 seconds. I'm like, wait, oh, that's Nick. Like for a second I thought my Instagram was screwed up. What is like your favorite thing that you've done outside of here when it comes, or something that you thought was interesting? A different type of hunting, fishing, like in other places?
So I'm not like a big hunter. I do enjoy it. My wife, Sarah, loves hunting. She would rather go hunting than fishing.
Really?
Yeah, and I thought fishing was expensive. Hunting is expensive too.
Oh, yeah.
Might be more expensive. So recently, we just went to Argentina. My friend had bought a trip at an auction, a fundraiser for the CCA, and he couldn't use it for a couple of years because of COVID. So we just flew over there and we went dove hunting, and it was a blast. And I had never shot doves before. So that was really cool. We went on the Piranha River. We caught golden dorado, we caught piranha, so that was really neat. But
That's really cool.
I've shot a couple deer before. I probably shot 5 or 6 deer.
In Florida or where?
I've shot a couple in Florida. Then I shot some in South Carolina with Scott from Freeman. He's the head sales guy there, and I think the VP now. I became family friends with him. He works there. Also, my buddy Jeff, he's got a place in Oklahoma. So I probably shot about 6 deer, not a bunch, but and Sarah. Last time I went hunting for deer, it was on October. I missed, and I thought maybe the scope was off. And my buddy's, the scope's not off. I missed a couple of shots. And Sarah got a really nice buck. She got like a 10-pointer.
Really?
One of them was close. It might have been 9, but one of them was. But you could hang a ring on it, so it's. We'll call it 10.
What I had.
We'll call it 10 for us.
I had the same thing. It was like 9, and there was one where he's like, "You can hang a ring," and I was like, "Man, I don't know."
But it ain't a full inch or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I really score him, so I'm not super nice. But she loves it, and I was super happy for her because she got to shoot a nice buck there. And I told my buddy that his scope was off. I'd missed 2 does and a buck, and the
You
buck,
missed 3?
don't put it in there. Yeah,
Dude, this guy has his eyes closed.
Okay, I was nervous. I get buck fever.
No,
I was
I
shaking.
had that.
So,
I've had that
But anyhow,
too.
the does were far away, and the buck was super far, but he was way out in the opposite end of the field. I could just see his head sticking up, and obviously you shouldn't take a shot if you don't think you're gonna hit him. But I thought I was, but I kept missing. Anyhow, funny story is the guy he had bought this fancy gun. These guns are expensive, some of them. He bought this scope. I think he's got $10,000 into this gun with this fancy scope. His wife doesn't know about it. I don't know if she'll see this, but sorry, buddy. But anyhow, he goes out to his other buddy's got a private land ranch there and shoots, and he misses an animal about 2 months later. I was like, oh, maybe it was the gun after all,
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was or not. He said it was dialed in, but my other buddy goes, oh, yeah. He goes, just so you know, he missed a nice nilgai here, which was an animal I have on this property.
In Texas or?
This was actually
in Oklahoma?
No, this one here was in North Florida, actually.
No
my other
way.
friend bought this closed property, and there were some animals there they wanted to kind of get rid of just to focus on the big bucks.
Those things are cool. Those
They're cool
nilgai
looking.
are crazy animals.
Yeah. And my buddy's Brad place. So our other buddy Scott had missed this critter there. Didn't tell me about it, but Brad made sure to. I said, oh, no, what's the funny story?
That's a real friend that told you.
Yeah, for sure,
Because he
definitely.
would have never told you.
Nope. So he didn't miss it. It was his property, but my other buddy's the one who missed it. And the other buddy whose gun I borrowed last time I went hunting in October for deer that I kept missing. So maybe it was the gun after all. I don't know.
Sometimes it is.
So, it could
Even
be.
when you're sighting it
So-
in, that is one thing that I
Yeah.
was surprised at. Like, you'd shoot something in the bullseye and it goes here, and you're
Yep.
like, there is a little bit to that.
For
Fixing
sure.
the
And you
scopes.
get nervous. I was shaking, but yeah. So, we had put up a picture one time on Instagram. This is years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Up there with Scott. Sarah shot a buck. I shot a doe, and we want to bring venison home. We're super excited. Obviously, we don't get venison down here in the Keys, so we pack it all up there. But we took a picture. And I remember laying the guns down. We unloaded everything and stuff like that. I'm like, I got my wife there, my little baby's there. Like, oh, let me jump in for a quick picture. The gun's unloaded and stuff like that. It's laying down. Like, so I kneel down. We take a picture, put it up there, and like, oh, the gun's pointing at you. And the internet is such a ridiculous place there. And you know what? The gun's loaded. Like, oh, unloaded guns kill people. No, loaded guns kill people. But you should always treat a gun like it's loaded and you should be safe. But the freaking people just ripped us apart there. So I had to delete the picture and put up another one. But it was just funny. People want to criticize you and critique you all the time. And you should take 100% safety, with guns, with fishing motors and that stuff. But I'm like, it's like you could be taking a picture by a car and it's like saying, you shouldn't do that. The car could be on, but it's like, it's your car at your house. You're taking pictures. So the internet's a funny place, but I do enjoy hunting occasionally, a couple times a year. Sarah's super into it, but we've had some fun. I guess I would say too, when I went hunting with my friends, the 5 or 6 people I've gone with, it's really sitting in the blind telling stories and laughing. That's a big part of it too.
And at night sitting in the best part about hunting for me is when you go back to the lodge, because it gets dark at like 5 p.m. because it's like winter, like especially in Missouri. We go back and it's dark at 5 p.m. and then you can't do anything till the next day because it's not legal shooting light, and just sitting there talking. That's almost more fun to me.
For sure, the stories, no doubt. The stories when you're hunting or fishing on a boat, you're hunting a lodge there. They keep you laughing. That's
and it's
for sure.
fun too because it's almost like everyone's talking about the actual act of hunting is like 5% of hunting.
It's like 1%. You sit there for like 5 hours hoping to pull the trigger once, or use it.
And you never see them, and then you go back to the lodge and talk about what you're gonna do for 10 hours. That's my favorite part, man. And then we'd stare at the maps, and you know what, man? I think they're traveling here. I'm gonna sit here, and then you get there the next day, you see nothing. Then you go back to the lodge. I know where they're at. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
It is fun. It's like fishing. It's like should have been here yesterday or tomorrow. 2 best days of fishing: yesterday and tomorrow. Never the day you're out there.
Or same last year, you should have seen this one we caught, man. It's crazy. But anyways, my last complaint, I keep forgetting. So when we fished, I forgot what we were talking about that came up. I was like, Nick, someday I want to get in the tackle shop a picture.
Oh yeah.
And you were like, because I remember, because we talked about it, I have it on camera. You're like, I'm gonna get you in there because there's probably 500 pictures.
I know my dad puts up a lot of me. He can take some of me down.
All I'm saying is, I told you at that day, I'm like, dude, I don't know. It's not about, like, to me, this is like the Hall of Fame. And I was like, if you put even just us with that swordfish, I'm like, it doesn't have to be anything in there. It'll make my life. And I came back. A lot of things happened in my life right after that. Crazy stuff. I left Barstool, all this stuff. And I remember I didn't come back for a full year after that. And I came back and I looked around and I'm like... And I remember being like, no way. And then I looked around because I didn't really remember it. I had a lot going on. It was a crazy time. But then out of all the hits I took that year, when I walked through the shop, I was like, Nick, how could you do this to me, man? I was heartbroken. And I made a video and I was like, Nick, there's no thing in here. And then I come back. It's still not. I feel like you just hit me with the yeah, for sure. And then it's like, I just want to know someday that's still my goal. I guess it's not a complaint as much as a goal. A reestablishing of my mission. I still want to get in. I said we
were going to put you in there.
I'll find the video.
I know, but if we caught that swordfish that got away, you could have been in there.
I know. Now I got to do something. Maybe the great white I can put in there. That's cool.
That is cool.
But it wasn't caught from here. I don't know.
I was going to make it in there. My dad's the commander-in-chief here, so we got to run it by him.
That makes me nervous. Your dad, he's never done anything mean to me ever. He's like been nothing but nice, but he walks by and I get the shivers because he's just an intimidating figure. Yeah. Growing up, me and my friends used to put the white sunscreen on our nose and not rub it in because that was legendary to us.
Yep.
He doesn't even know who I am, but every time he's even said hi to me, I'd go home and I'd tell him, dude, I saw Richard Stanczyk today, but I'm scared of him. Yeah. Not because he's ever been mean, for the record, just because he's an intimidating figure. No, but all right, we'll work on it.
We're going to work on the picture there.
That's all I'm saying.
Let's go work on it. So,
well, I appreciate you having the time today. We're in a very cool location. It's been fun hanging out. And not that people really need to know because you're pretty big time, but where can they find you if they somehow didn't know you until right now?
If you guys want to follow along on Instagram, Captain Nick Stanczyk, CAPT. Then Nick Stanczyk is my Instagram handle. As well
CZYK too.
Yep.
You got to get that because it's hard to spell.
Captain Nick and then Stanczyk is STANCZYK. Put in Captain Nick, it'll pop up.
It'll pop up.
He had a blue check mark, so I had to get one.
I know. So I don't have now. Mine. I don't know what's going on with it.
Okay.
I don't have one of my other.
So I got Facebook,
but I'm getting it back.
We got Facebook Captain Nick Stanczyk, and then if you want to go on YouTube and watch any fishing videos, Stan's Fam. So STANZ and then Fam. One word like family. So Stan's Fam is our YouTube. And if you guys ever want to come down to Bud and Mary's Marina and go fishing, it's in Islamorada on the Florida Keys. I still run a few charters. My mates run the boat a lot. I've been having some other stuff going on.
The water damage.
And water damage is my old boat. So Broadminded is still my current boat. Yep. So we got 2 boats running here. And then there's 50 other boats here, So there's backcountry guides, offshore boats. And if you want to, and there's even a head boat, if you just want to go fishing and not spend a ton of money. So there's a lot of options here. So come on down to the Keys and check it out. Go to the website, budmarys.com. And
yeah, I like how you promote the water damage too, because the Broadminded's all this famous stuff. But I like how you. One thing I will say, and this is my last thing of like kissing your ass because I don't want to be.
We gotta go.
But all I'm saying is, I appreciate how you build up everyone around. You're
Sure.
never shy with like promoting or helping people.
Definitely.
And I think that makes a difference. I've had other people tell me, man, Nick was so nice. He helped me with everything. And I think that means more than any of the other stuff, you know, because you're helping people out that are then trying to make their own thing.
Sure,
So,
without doubt. Someone had to help me out and point me in the right direction.
Yeah.
If you can give back, and people who want help, you know, it's nice to help them. And some people don't want help and they want to stay where they're at in life. But if someone wants it, you know, and you can see that, you know, that person, you know, he's got a shot, you know, as you call me up to do this, like, let's do it, you know?
I appreciate it.
So we're trying. I was trying. I'm still trying, you know. This ain't done yet. I'm still doing my
no.
own thing. You ain't done yet. You're trying. And we all have these goals and missions in life and projects we want to take on, and we want to succeed. So we're trying.
Well, thank you, man.
Yeah,
It's
no
been a
problem. Thanks for
pleasure.
having me. I'm glad I was here. Hope
Yes,
y'all
sir.
enjoyed it.